me practice on you. If love is a skill, I've got so much practice to do. If you, if you love is, if you practice on, if you love is, if you, if you love is, if you practice on, if love is a skill, let me practice on you. If love is a skill, I've got so much more loving to do. If love is a skill, let me practice on you. If love is a skill, I've got so much practice left to do.
I almost got it. Do I have it? Is the music off?
Yes, you nailed it.
I'm here. I'm good.
Everyone's here. Good. Hi. Jen Malone,
Hi.
music supervisor extraordinaire, LPGOB, my partner in crime. I am her mix-a-lot. This is Backstage Path with Fem House. Jen, you don't know this, but I am sort of like a music executive geek. I always have been. And music supervisors are like my favorite thing. So I don't even want to venture an intro. I want you to introduce yourself because it's like the queen is in the building and you don't introduce the queen.
Thank you so much, ladies, for having me. I'm Jen Malone. I am a music supervisor. I run the company Black and White Music, and I do some cool shows. How about that? No.
That works. That is more than okay. For those of you that don't know, Black and White Music is responsible for all the buzziest TV music moments that you've seen probably in the last however long you guys have had your doors open. There are so many shows like Wednesday, for instance, that moment that y'all created with Jenna Ortega like dancing. Like I started watching that show because of that moment. It's also an all-female company, which we'll get to, but tell us, you have like one of the most interesting career arcs, I think that I've heard of in quite some time. Tell us about your superhero origin story.
Well, this is my second career. I started out in PR. I was a publicist for rock bands in Boston. I went to school at Northeastern University. I was a music industry major. Northeastern was actually one of the first schools that had that. So I started out in PR. I ran my own company, also called Black and White. I didn't really change my name. And after doing PR for bands for about 8 years, I ended up just getting really, really burnt out. It was not, it just wasn't fun anymore. And so I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I kind of, I was teaching yoga at the time, and I was just kind of going through a funk. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I always kind of have a focus, and I'm very focused. And just when I know I want something, I know how to go and get it. Well, I don't know how, but I figured out how to go get it. So it was a really, really weird time for me. And I saw the movie Iron Man, and the music supervisor credit rolled by, and I was like, music supervisor, okay, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be a music supervisor. Not really knowing anything about the business, not knowing how a TV show was made, what an editor does, what a producer does. But I ended up moving to Los Angeles with just my car and my clothes. and ended up just starting doing a ton of researching all the music supervisors, what shows they did, who their agents were, any article that I could find with an interview with a music supervisor. I read it, I watched YouTube videos, just really kind of dove in, and then just started reaching out to anybody that I knew that was somewhat affiliated with the business, starting off with the people that I knew from being a publicist. And it was just a matter of connecting the dots. And I ended up going to a networking event, and I was very serendipitously introduced to Dave Jordan, who does all of Marvel. And I told him, I said, I went up and I introduced myself, and he was very nice to me too. And I was like, wait, your Richard Kraft won't get back to me. And he said, you know who my agent is? I said, of course I do. I want to work for you. And he said, that's creepy, but awesome. What's your name? And so we completely hit it off. And I just told him that I want to intern for you. And he said, why would you want to intern? You've had this successful career. You've worked with bands. I said, because I don't know anything about music supervision, and this is the entertainment industry, and you start from the bottom. Nobody's going to pay me to do something I don't know how to do. And this is just how it works. And he said, okay, start on Monday. So I got an internship with Dave, and that was amazing. And just, listened to every word that was said in that office, looked at every piece of paper, just asked a lot of questions. And after that internship was over, I didn't have a job lined up, and but I was on a news group of women in the music industry, and somebody posted that MTV was looking for interns for their supervision department. Now, as this being my second career, I'm a little bit older, so going to work at Dave's funky office is one thing. Going to work for Viacom is something totally different. But it was a matter of, put your ego aside, you'll learn, you'll meet people, you got to do this. So I went in for the interview, and the people that I interviewed with were like, just trust us, do whatever you need to do to get into the orientation. Now, when you work for a big corporation, you have to get school credit. And I was several years out of college, but I ended up going to LA Community College. I filled out an ad slip. I never went, I never paid, but I had this piece of paper saying that I was enrolled. Showed up to the first day of the internship. We all just sit in a boardroom table and go around and say what our major was and what school we were going to. And it's a very humbling experience. But I ended up interning for 3 days, and then I got a job as a music coordinator on VH1 shows. So that's kind of how I got into it. So I worked in reality television for about 5 years, which is not the sexiest, but I learned so much working with editors, cue sheets, just really, it was music supervision boot camp. And then I reconnected with a friend from Boston, and she was working on a show called Baskets. And she was like, oh, I have this song, I know you do the clearance, can you help me? And I was like, yeah, of course. So I cleared that song, and then it was like, wait, is this song public domain? And can you just be our music supervisor? So Baskets was one of my first scripted show as a supervisor, and I ended up working with Caitlin on that. And then when that was over, she called me and she said, so I have another show. It's going to be a lot of hip hop. It's going to be really hard. It's going to be mixtapes. I don't have a lot of money to pay you. It's with Donald Glover. And I was like, I'm in. So that was Atlanta season 1. And that kind of really changed everything. I was pretty much solo for my whole kind of coming up. Well, first I was a coordinator, and then as a supervisor, I was solo. Then during Atlanta, I needed help. So I had an intern that, ended up being so much work, I ended up paying her. And then Euphoria came along, and then other shows started coming. And so my team just expanded, and now there's five of us women. We have Nicole and Whitney, who are music supervisors that we work on different projects together. We have Sarah, who's our coordinator, who's amazing, and then Haley Hanna, who does our clearance for all of our projects. And I don't know, here we are.
I love how casually you tell that story, which is like one of the biggest flex stories of all time that I've ever heard. You're just like, oh, I scroll in the credits and boom, I was a music supervisor and just did everything possible until I was the music supervisor. It sort of sums up the Femme House ethos and the ethos of me and LP's friendship, which is like tits first, which is just like jump, a net will appear. There's so much cool stuff, like my mind is spinning. So you're just like, oh yeah, that show was Atlanta. And then you just listed off every humongous like cultural linchpin show of the last 5 years.
And shows that are built around music.
Shows that are built around music.
Yeah, music are characters in the shows, which is how in cases like that, are you working really closely with, you know, the writers of the shows to ensure, just because the music is so pivotal in you know, who has the final go ahead for like the songs that you're bringing to the table?
Well, I think it's important. I think music supervision is a very misunderstood job. A lot of people think it's just sitting around making playlists all day and having good taste in music, and that's part of it. But there is so much more to this job. You know, we start at the script stage. We don't really work with the writers. We start getting scripts before we even start shooting, because one of the most important things is on cameras. So let's say there's somebody singing in the shower, or like when Rue is singing Tupac in I don't know which episode. All
Right.
of this sometimes blend into one. You have to clear those songs and have everything prepared before you shoot.
Because wait, I'm sorry. You have to get a song cleared if the actress is just singing it themselves?
It's copywritten, absolutely.
Upside.
So
wow,
if somebody's like, you know,
about that.
If they're scripting in, you know, a scene where, you know, they're whatever song, a Beyonce song, a catalog song, you have to clear that. Titles of songs cannot be copywritten. So you can say the title of the song. You can't, if it's like the chorus, you can't like sing, you know, sing it. Because once it's sung, then you have to clear it. So in Atlanta, for example, Ern and Van start singing "Happy Birthday, the Stevie Wonder version, and all it was "Happy Birthday, Happy," and that's all it was. We had to clear that because it's copywritten. Now, regular "Happy Birthday" straight is public domain, but you absolutely have to clear every song. So that's why we start before our job starts before we start shooting. And so we're constantly getting scripts, reading them, you know, making, you know, spotting them, make sure if somebody's putting on a record, right, and they hold up the record and they're putting it down, you're working with the fact that, you know, it has to be that song because you're going to see the artwork. So you have to clear it.
Have you ever gotten a script and seen, you know, somebody singing a song and said, this is going to be too difficult to clear? I recommend you change this, or are, you know, before we don't have enough leadway to clear this, or has that ever happened?
I mean, you know, stuff always happens. We just, you know, I never want to say to a showrunner, you can't use this song. It's the worst part of my job, and I will do anything and everything to try and avoid saying that. But sometimes it is what it is. I can't remember offhand. I'm sure it's happened, but you know, if it's something where it's, you know, a really tight turnaround, which, you know, I think production schedules are insane and they change and you're constantly getting script revisions. I mean, you just have to be so on your toes and on it. But sometimes if something doesn't clear, we try to always have a plan B. But, you know, we just always want to make sure that we're fulfilling the director's vision. So as we're, you know, clearing music and making sure that everything is set up, you know, you can get a script and they're at whether it's a wedding and there's a string quartet playing, we have to handle that. We have to handle what piece they're going to be playing. You have to make sure that it's cleared. You have to make sure that it's the correct arrangement that the director has in mind. You have to make sure, okay, what are the instruments? Is it 2 cellos or 1? And then you have to work with casting to get those people who know how to play, because it's all miming. You're never hearing anything live on set for the most part, but usually 99%, it's all what's called a pre-record. If there's a song that the director wants to use as a string arrangement, but there is no string arrangement. So for example, in Wecrashed, which was with Jared Leto and Anne Hathaway, the Apple show, they had a scene at a wedding where they wanted a klezmer band perform Peter Gabriel in Your Eyes. Now there is not an existing version of that. So we had to go get that created, then find the klezmer band, then give the band members each of their parts that they knew what they would be playing, connect them with, casting to make sure that all their SAG paperwork is complete, making sure that they're going to have all their instruments, making sure we're working with props, we're working with casting. Sometimes we're working with costumes. I had a show where it was a big on camera and it was they put the drummer in like a blazer. And when you're playing drums, like a blazer like that just doesn't work. So costumes had to change what their vision was. So while we're doing all of this, when we're shooting, we're also the editors so let's say we start shooting episode 2. Well, episode 1 is being put together by the editors and they're starting to ask for music. What we do is first we'll make bins of music of different ideas, like character, sometimes playlists. We had a whole Wednesday playlist. We had a whole like cello based playlist and all vintage Latinx playlist. But sometimes there's something really specific and they'll send me the scene and we'll look at it and we'll offer usually 5 options, no more than that. They'll try them up to picture and present them to the showrunner or the director, and then they pick the song and then we go and clear it. And then we do that sometimes for 23 episodes. Sometimes you're on one search, like, no, these don't work. Send us a couple more. No, let's go in this direction. No, let's go back to that direction, but get more. So, there are scenes where I'll pitch like 30 to 50 songs. But at the end of the day, it is the showrunner or the director's vision.
Right.
That's my job, is to fulfill their vision.
Right. So are you also the ones, I'm assuming that you're given a budget for every show or episode or whatever it is. And some artists, their syncs are just more because they have a bigger sync history or whatever than other artists. So are you having to, when you're putting forth a playlist of songs that you think could fit, are you having to also think about the price, or what you kind of roughly know is the price for each of these artists / songs?
100%. I look at the show as like, and I do a couple movies. I just really love TV. But you're looking at this series as a whole. So if you have a big montage moment, that's where you're going to want to spend your money. You're not going to want to spend it in the coffee house background source. So, you look at it as a puzzle, like, okay, the finale, we know we have this big pivotal scene. We need to have a chunk of money here, but then we have this big scene here, but then we can fill all of this out with some more inexpensive indie type stuff. So it is very much like we send over sometimes money bins where it'll just say bins. When I say bins, that's actual audio files that go into the Avid for people that want to get into editing the software so that they can actually put the music up to picture and tweak it and edit it, like you can't just send Spotify links. So we'll send bins of like, 5 price, money signs, and then, 2 and then 1, so that the editors can also help us with not putting some background restaurant source, putting a $50,000 song in there. So, but yes, the budget is on us. We are in charge of the budget.
And are for some, sorry, Lauren, I'm just like diving through all the questions that you have prepared. This is just so fascinating to me. When do you decide to work with a composer? Is that versus, a created already artist song, or I don't know how else you say that.
So yeah, so a licensed song, a pre-existing song. So that will start when the editors are putting together the episode. They'll usually have a really good sense of where there's going to be score and where there's going to be a needle drop. But yeah, so that's kind of where, you know, a lot is decided from the showrunner and from the director working with the editor. There might be like a song in there, but the showrunner really feels it's going to be a beautiful piece of score from our composer. But right now, you know, it's this, but let's see, you know, so it's a lot of like back and forth. But there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just really whatever the tone of the show is. If it's more of a score heavy piece, or the director, like I said, is like, no, I don't want a song in this big fight scene. I want something from our composer.
Can I ask a Euphoria/Labyrinth specific question?
Yeah.
So I'm just in the wake of what you just said, I'm thinking about how his score is almost like a character, but some of his score sort of interpolates some of his existing music. Are you then contending with both? Like, so my example is the All for Love big season finale moment, and I think it's season 1.
All for Us. Mm-hmm.
All for Us, yeah. Is that because I know he has his own version, and then he made another version with Zendaya, right? So like, are you then having to clear the original version, or was the whole thing for Euphoria?
Yeah, so Labyrinth sent his demo of All for Us to Sam. We knew, you know, we already knew that there was going to be a big musical number at the end of the series. So Labyrinth is, you know, Lav and Sam have such an incredible collaborative, their own language, you know, in the same way of like Tim Burton and Danny Elfman, for example. So he sent All for Us, and Sam flipped out. And so we ended up developing that song. So that's a perfect example of having to get, you know, Sam wanted a 100-piece marching band, a 70-person choir, Zendaya to sing it. So we took Labyrinth's All for Us and we got it arranged for a marching band. And then we had to go in to record it. And then we went and recorded Zendaya's vocals, and then had it, you know, okay, Sam, which parts of the song do you want? And then it was released. So that's how that was put together.
Right. What's like just the biggest like marathon absolute slog of a clearance that at the end of it, you were like, I can retire. Like, I'm that girl. Like, what was the thing that just like had you with your eyes popping open at 4 a.m? Like, how the fuck am I going to do this?
Oh God, that feeling. I don't want to relive that feeling. Because there's a lot. There's a lot.
Sure.
I mean, I have so many insane clearance nightmare stories. I could probably do a whole panel on that, and that would be there's some pretty epic ones. I can give you a really short one. It's really good, so I really want to do this. And strangely enough, it was not for one of my projects. It was a friend of mine in Sweden who's a music supervisor, and he was trying to clear that song called "Me and You" by Cassie. Me plus you.
Oh yeah.
And it's such a good song. And they already shot a dance to it. So that's another thing. If there's, you know, if there's a dance in an episode, you have to work with the choreographer and get the song done. So it was written by Ryan
Leslie.
Ryan Leslie, yes, thank you. So okay. My friend Rasmus in Sweden, he could not find Ryan Leslie anywhere. And he was like, can you help me? I was like, sure, I'm on it. So, you know, Universal didn't have this song. Cobalt didn't have this song. We started digging and digging and digging. And this was one of the things where I was like, this guy is so prolific. He's findable. How does nobody have his publishing? Like, what is happening? So this was exactly a 4 a.m. I started Googling this shit out of him. Turns out so the story goes, he lost his laptop in Europe somewhere. And
I was just about to ask if this was the last laptop era.
Yep. So this was the lost laptop. 20 grand to anybody that finds it with everything on there. Nothing. $1 million, he said on YouTube. You can probably go and find it. $1 million for anybody that finds my laptop. fast forward, I don't know how long, a German mechanic found the laptop and returned it. Now, Mr. Leslie said that there was nothing on there, so he wasn't going to give the $1 million. The German mechanic was like, it was on there. I'm suing you in the States. So this German mechanic sued him here and won. Now, so he didn't have $1 million. Ryan Leslie did not have $1 million to pay up this debt that the courts found that he was liable for. So the first thing that they do is they seize your assets.
No.
What's your biggest asset as a songwriter? Your publishing. I found out who the lawyer was for the German mechanic, found him, was like, hi, do you look after this? He's like, indeed we do. I was like, so you have the right to license this? He's like, I sure do. And so that's how I helped a good friend that that's probably the craziest one.
That's completely fucking insane. And
that's actually the saddest story I've ever heard.
It's to me like one of the great tragedies of the music industry. Like Ryan Leslie is beyond talented, like his era's Labyrinth, for instance, and that whole thing just put the light out, just like extinguished the candle immediately, which sucks. That's insane, Jen. I'm glad you made.
I tried to get that in like 2 minutes because
I love that was like on behalf of like a good friend.
Yeah, I mean, we're all, here's the thing is that we're all in this together. I really believe that the music supervision and sync community is really small, and we're all in this together. And I have such an incredible community of people where I want to help them and I go to them for help. Hey, have you cleared this? How much does it cost? Who's our person here? What do I do? How do I write this fuck you email without saying fuck you, kind of thing. Sorry, Mom. And so it's, we're all in this together, and to be able to help a friend like that. And also, look, I'm not going to lie, that chase, that hunt, that search, I kind of like it sometimes.
Yeah, it's some blood.
You
can really get into it. I mean, there's, I know that, there's a lot of songs that are really hard to find, but my next career is going to be a private investigator.
Perfect.
Is it your job to clear it on both the publishing and the master side?
100%, because you can't use one without the other.
Right.
So our job is clearance, negotiation, finding every single writer, which is why if you are, an artist that wants to get into sync, you need to have that business buttoned up. Because when you're working on, let's say, like I do a lot of network TV as well. I do Will Trent and The Equalizer. Those you shoot for a week, edit, mix, air. So all in like 3 weeks. So it's crazy. So we don't have time to really hunt people down, especially for indies. It needs to be, here are all the writers, this is their splits, contact information, publishing, here's who owns the master. Like, so I can just clear it really fast, because in TV, we just don't have time.
Do you have any advice then for artists and like sort of like indie labels and everything that are trying to place to make it as easy as possible?
Have that information ready to go. If you can sign off on behalf of all your writers, do split sheets. Don't sample. Do not sample as an indie artist unless you have somebody else, like the top lawyer negotiating that. But I wouldn't even do that, because as an indie artist, I will have smaller fees. But the second there is a major publisher involved, especially with a sample, that fee is going to go up. So have the business together. We're all in this. This is a business, right? We all want to make money off of this. So if this is how you want to make income, you got to have your house in order. You got to have, again, split sheets, percentages, writers, contact information, publishers, like everything just so on lock, so that the clearance process, make sure that that writer that you wrote with on that song 5 years ago, make sure you're in touch with them, or you have the right number for them. Because if I can't clear that portion, I think it's important. You could have the most perfect song in the world for that spot. Brilliant, perfect. If you can't clear it, you can't use it.
So real.
How's the black and white crew finding music these days? I remember I was briefly an intern at Disney in their music suit department, and we were just getting, and this is like in the era of like CDs, so it was just I was opening like 500 CDs a day. How are you guys sifting through music? How's it coming? And like, how often are you listening? How often do you have to listen? How often do you feel like you have to be ahead of the curve, especially as you're, you know, in charge of the musical climate for all of our favorite shows? What's the process?
I mean, we really find music everywhere and anywhere, whether it's, you know, I was listening, my husband and I were driving and I was listening to 80s on 8 because I'm working on an 80s show and I'm also Gen X. So of course I'm listening to 80s and I was like, oh my God, what is this song? I had my husband like take a screenshot and send it to me. So, because I was driving. So like even that way, sometimes I'm like, oh, that could be great. But I'm always listening to music, always, you know, whenever I listen to something, you know, for better, for worse, like I don't consume music like a normal person anymore because everything is, well, what song would this be good in? Mm-hmm. And is this a hard clear? I'm not sure, but I'm going to put it in this show's folder or season 3, or this could be cool for Wednesday, or this could be cool for Euphoria, you know, whatever show I'm working on. So really it's anywhere and everywhere. Obviously mailings, the people that I work with on the label and publishing side are always sending me music. Finding, I mean, just really anywhere.
And are you ever sending out briefs? You know, we're looking for a song that is like XYZ for, yeah.
Sometimes, yeah, not a whole hell of a lot. Unless it's something really specific, you know, I need a clearable 90s hip hop song that will be good for, you know, 10K aside, that has this BPM. I don't really work with BPMs because I'm more of a, you know, put it up to picture. You know, that has like, you know, temp was Duran, but I can't afford Duran. So give me some other, that's not hip hop, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Got it. Amazing. So were you working in this field when, because I maybe it's a little bit different because commercials are obviously a little bit different, but I remember when Portugal the Man, who's one of my favorite bands, they were one of the first bands I loved who I heard in a car commercial, and they were torched for this. Their fans were so upset. They even made merch that said, I knew Portugal the Man before they sold out. Like it was like, you're such a sellout that you're using your music to sell things. You're such a sellout. I specifically remember feeling so bad for them that they were being so made fun of for that. And then there was this epic shift where now it's cool no matter what to have your music used in anything. And seeing that that's been such a wild, you know, that's happened in the last decade and a half that I've been in the music industry. Have you seen that? Like, were you working through that time?
I wasn't. I do have an issue with that because I can't deal with gatekeeping. And if you love a band that much, don't you want everybody else to experience that music? Whether it's a car commercial, whether it's in Euphoria, whether it's on the radio, like why? I don't understand why they would get slack for that. And maybe they needed that money in order to go on tour for you to go see them. Maybe
they literally did. It's a band of 10 people who were sleeping on the side of the road in their actual van. Actually, it's like actually how they survived, and people were mad. It's just so wild.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's so fucking lame, and just, it's so lame. Like you have no idea, like, you know, and especially with the amount of artists that will, you know, reach out to me, indie artists. Like I remember back at my MTV days, they would be like, this bought us a van. This sync bought us a van. And so I don't know, the gatekeeping thing is kind of crazy, but you know, sync has definitely got much more prolific because that's, I think, the way that it's the way that people are experiencing music. And I think that the reason why is because of the accessibility. It's so easy to find what songs are in what shows. And so people make all these playlists and stuff, and that directly impacts the band's profile, their plays, just everything. I mean, how, we can go and name a million songs, not even just, Goo Goo Muck or Kate Bush. Like, there's a million songs. I mean, Donny Hathaway was trending on Twitter after the season finale of Euphoria. Like, and so I think that there's a lot more. If there is an artist that doesn't want their song associated with beer or like alcohol or cigarette, I mean, we don't have cigarette commercials, but something that they're not aligned with, totally cool. Or if an artist doesn't want their song over a sex scene or somebody doing drugs, I can't argue with that.
Yeah.
But so on an artist level, it is up to them. But I don't think, I think sync is just so much bigger. And I know a lot of legacy artists are now, that were known to be super expensive or super difficult, are reaching out because they do want these syncs. They see the power of what it does, which is literally, I think in a way with music supervision, we're obviously telling a story through music, but it's also sometimes sometimes I could think it's a mixtape, like with Euphoria, because we use so much catalog. It's a mixtape that we're given to the audience, like you have an older cousin, an older sister, an older brother that, like the Almost Famous, like, listen to this, and they sneak you that song that just blows your mind, and just
a great reference. Yes.
So that's kind of some, and again with Goo Goo Muck, you not only did that song explode in the zeitgeist, but also you look at all the streaming numbers for the rest of the Cramps catalog. And so maybe somebody now, the younger generation is just experiencing that. And I will say also an amazing thing with Wednesday was that there has been a significant bump in schools that offer band for kids signing up for cello. And I think that's dope as fuck.
That's super dope.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a break real quick and remind everyone that's joining us and streaming with us, you guys can ask Jen questions. Put your questions in the Q&A box. That's why we do it this way, so that you can talk with her directly. Don't put it in the chat box. Auntie don't know where that is. I won't see it. Put it in the Q&A box.
Where's the Q&A box? Oh, there it is. I see it. Okay, sorry.
Down at the bottom of, I don't know if
I got it.
Everyone sees it the way we see it, but it's down at the bottom of your screen somewhere, guys. So feel free to shoot questions over, because we'll be wrapping up in a few minutes here. This question is specifically for your mom, knowing that your mom is here.
I was going to say, I also want to thank Jen's mom. Thank you so much for having her and creating her, and you did a great job if you're watching.
You did a great job, Mom. But I'm asking this question because if Mom is proud enough to be here live streaming with little old us, I know that this Variety article must be blown up to like poster size somewhere in Mama's house. Variety called you a tastemaker of the moment. My question is then, are you out to create all these humongously, like, culturally important moments that you're creating just by like having great taste and caring about the material and doing all the work that you do? Or is it just a happy byproduct?
My job is to serve the director and the showrunner and help tell their story. And that is what I set out to do. You never know when a show is going to hit. At least I don't. I mean, I know that the beginning, I'm working on really special, exciting, creatively fulfilling projects. But it's not a matter of, I'm going to make a viral moment. I just want to fulfill my director and showrunner's vision. And I do need to emphasize too, that it's not just me. It's the showrunner, sometimes the editor, sometimes the assistant editor has an incredible idea where you're just like, you know what? This is not, you can't be territorial about this because we're all in it together. And, at the end of the day, the shows that I have been lucky enough to work on do have these moments, but it's nothing that with Goo Goo Muck, we weren't like, we're going to make a viral moment. It was just like, this song is awesome. It's perfect for Wednesday. It's perfect for a dance. You got to use it. And they were like, yeah, okay. And then all of a sudden I was like, what? um,
Is there a moment that has been sort of like your baby thus far that you've been a part of, where you're just like, this is the one, this is why I do this?
Probably Goo Goo Muck, because I'm kind of a, punk rock goth girl, former goth, and I know, Cramps are in that world. They're not a goth band. I know that, so don't come at me, but which some people have. I'm like, you know what I mean. But I think that was something. I think, overall with Euphoria, I mean, I love the 100 Gex moment that we had for Lexi. The Offer, which was one of my favorite shows. I got a Jimi Hendrix song in there, which was pretty huge.
Yeah.
Obviously being a part of Atlanta was crazy. So but I think Goo Goo Muck right now, probably because that's the most recent, is like one of my things that I'm like really, really proud of, for some obscure band that had 6 million listens on Spotify. The day I took a screenshot, the day the show aired, it had 6 million. Now it has 70 million, which is crazy.
Oh my gosh.
That's always been sort of what, I, in a previous life, sort of wanted to be a music supervisor. And this idea, like Alex Pexavas was like my goddess. And like this idea that you can impact the lives of these artists in this really tangible, financial and sort of like social capital way is what sort of drew me to it. That you could love something so much, find the perfect place to create space for other people to love it too, and change their lives and help them feed their families and help them go on tour again. That's really cool. So
I saw this firsthand. I was touring with Sophie Tucker when they first started in a minivan. I was helping drive the minivan, opening for them. And then we were playing to 5 people in some, cities in middle America. And then they got the Apple iPhone 10 sync, and overnight got on a tour bus and we're playing to thousands and thousands of people. Yeah. It was wild.
Yeah.
Overnight.
It's special.
I've got some questions here. Are you down to answer a few?
Yeah, I think that first one is a great question. How much of music supervision is negotiation, contracts, and understanding publishing? Would you recommend aspiring music supervisors take law classes to better be prepared with those parts of music supervision? That's an incredible question. Again, if you can't clear a song, you can't use it. So absolutely, you need to understand. The majority is, I would say 75-25 is negotiation clearance. UCLA Extension School offers a music supervision class. I think there's a lot of different schools. I heard that there's like a MBA or something in music supervision. I do not recommend that, because many classes are not going to teach you the nuances of working with different editors and dealing with the politics of the studio and managing a budget and how to be on set when shit goes bad during and on camera. So I recommend, there are classes, specific music supervision classes. I would recommend that, number 1. Number 2, intern. Because there's 3 paths, I believe, to be a music supervisor. 1, you work at a studio. Studios have limitations. You're also in a very corporate environment. I could never be in a studio. I am not corporate at all. That's not for me. So there's 1. The 2 is being an independent supervisor like myself. This job, don't think you're going to get rich, because you're not. And that's why we were fighting to get a union, because we're very underpaid. Again, that's a whole other panel. So being an independent music supervisor, but you have to be able to get the gigs, or work for an independent music supervisor like myself. I cannot pay someone to do something they don't know how to do. With my girls, and I always call them my girls, I want to take care of them. We are all a team. We grow together. But it's not like, this is a very lucrative job. So to answer your question, take classes and intern. Jesse, one of my old interns from Black and White PR days. Hi, buddy. What are some TV creators, producers you'd love to work with, and who are some favorite musical artists that you'd love to get on the show? Well, Jesse, you probably know the answer to this. I would love to work with Trent Reznor.
Same among us.
I did work with Atticus on a show called Dispatches from Elsewhere, which was amazing. But I think he is number one, and it will happen. I don't know when. I don't know. And maybe today I might get a call. Next week it will happen. Though.
Yes, that attitude.
It will happen.
I don't know when, but it'll happen.
When you say you might get a call, because does that, I mean, it wouldn't be you going, it would be their team reaching out to do an original score, or how would that?
To work on a show together. So I'm very lucky that I do have an agent. I work with WME, but
Same.
I think I love Bradley. He's my consigliere. Been with him for like 6 years, and he's amazing. But I just want to also say that I hustle like a motherfucker to get my jobs. I saw the offer on deadline when it was announced. I immediately reached out to Bradley. I was like, I want this. I reached out to Paramount. I was like, Godfather is my life. You have to get me in the room with the showrunner. I want this. And I ended up getting it. So I am constantly reading the trades and hustling and taking meetings. And Bradley, can you introduce me to somebody at Annapurna or, whatever production company? So what would happen is ideally I would be on a show as the music supervisor, and Trent and Atticus would be the composers. So one day.
I just want to pause on that because I think that you said something really, really important. No matter who's watching, no matter what you want to do, if you've got a team around you that's advocating for you and everything, that's wonderful. Use them, leverage that, but you have to be your own best advocate first and foremost. You have to stay hungry, you have to stay virile, and you have to stay delusional to a certain extent, and go tell your team what's got you going so that they can help you go get it, but you got to go get it first.
Yeah, you have to do it. I mean, again, like I think there was I forget what other show I'm doing. There's a show called Hysteria, which now we're on pause for the strike, which is like hurting my soul. But it's a show that takes place in '89 about a metal band, a kids metal band. And I reached out to NBC. I was like, there's no other person that can do this show. And then I had my interview, and I Googled all of the people that I were going to meet with. I went out, I found them on Spotify, saw some of the bands that they liked. I mean, you need to want it. You need to work for it. You cannot be like, okay, like nothing is going to be handed to you. And I don't know if that's kind of a Gen X thing, because I know we've all heard it about kids these days, but you got to work for it. Nobody in this business is going to hand you anything. You have to work your ass off. And I have, and I'm very lucky that, that I've been lucky. I'm very lucky that I've been lucky, but yeah.
Even it's nice to hear that even at your level, you still have to work your ass off.
Yeah,
100%.
I mean, you're still the one. I want the offer. This is like good. You're still the one instructing and being the CEO of your company, even though you have a big hotshot agent and and all that. I think that's really inspiring.
Yeah. Really, do you rely on disco, and do you feel it's a useful tool for artists interacting with music supervisors? Absolutely. I use disco exclusively. You have to just make sure that all your metadata is correct. There are tons of resources on what metadata is, but it's just making sure that all of the information that we talked about earlier, all your writers, all your clearance information is in there. I just want to get to as many of these as possible. So yes, disco. So on your day-to-day experience, do you work mostly with men or women? And yes, engineering, music, and arts. Thank you. I am so lucky that in I'm working with a lot of female showrunners that I'm very lucky. Penguin is I'm working on Penguin for HBO, which has been announced. I have a female showrunner for that, a female showrunner for Will Trent. One of my other shows last year, Company You Keep, was a female showrunner. Summer I Turned Pretty season 2, Jenny Han. So, but there are a lot of men, and I've definitely had issues where sometimes I'm like, if I was a dude, you would never speak to me that way. And, you know, that has been an issue that happened once. And it happened once. I was on the phone, I was on a Zoom, and I was kind of like, well, no, I do know what I'm doing, and I sent you the information. You know, I can't, you know, I have to still keep my cool. And then it happened again. And I was like, I went to the studio and I was like, this happened twice. If it happens again, we will have a problem, because I will not be spoken to that way. I am really good at my job. I am on top of my shit. And if I was a man, this would never happen. I would never be spoken to that way. And the studio exec was like, do you want me to do anything? I said, no, I just want it noted. She was like, I copy, I hear you. And it never happened again. But you know, there are times where situations like this, and maybe, and my girls, I'm always asking my girls when they're doing their projects or when they're with an editor, I'm like, anybody from any funny business going on? Because I will not have it. I just will not. There's no need for it. And
sorry,
yeah.
Go ahead.
No.
Did you build Black and White as an all-female company on purpose, or is it just like a happy accident?
A little bit, I think both. I mean, my core, I think I did want to work with women, and because I see so many women that are amazing at what they do, but they just haven't had that chance to kind of break through. And that's why I've been like, no, come with me, and you're going to get your co-supervisor credits, and you're going to be taken care of. And yes, if you need to leave at 5 o'clock to go take your dog to the vet, it's not a big deal, you know? So it's just a culture that I don't know. And look, at the end of the day, women get it done. We just get it done. Sure, I did an article, like there was something with Variety. I did something and they asked, like, why are there so many women in music supervision? Which there are. And I said, women get it done. And she was like, and I'm like, oh no, that's the quote.
End of interview. Well, that was a complete sentence. Yeah.
Yes.
Incredible.
We have about 4 more minutes if you just want to pick a few more, one more, whatever you're comfortable with, Jen.
Yes. Okay. How would you go to find the indie artists you use? Sync libraries or word of mouth? I would say that working with sync reps, and that's also for Dana, who also asked a question about getting the songs to me. I think it's really important to do the research, because this job is all research, on independent licensors. So the companies that just do sync. Those are the people that I work with every day. I trust them. They know their business. They're the people that will pitch me artists, that will represent artists and independent labels, artists who are not with a major publisher or label.
But isn't a publisher also supposed to be pitching you?
Right, but some people might own everything on their own. You don't have to have a big publishing company. You don't have to be signed with Sony or Warner or BMG in order to get sync placements. So working with an independent sync company who have the relationships, who can facilitate understanding, I need a wave, I need lyrics, I need an instrumental, I need stems, and they're just like boom, boom, boom. So I really do think that it's important to do that research. And I know we're running out of time, but I have 2 quick resources that I would like to share with everybody here. The first one, really easy, it's tunefind.com. That is a website that lists every show, every movie, I think even an ad of all the songs that are placed in that show, in that episode. And I think it's really good when you're pitching people, like for The Offer, if you saw, I only used period music. So I would not want somebody to, they don't pitch me something that you made that was released in the last 20, 5 years,
Right.
because we only use period music. So I think that that's always a good place to start when you're doing your research. There's IMDb. That was the first thing I got when I wanted to be a music supervisor, was I got IMDb Pro, because you can find out everybody who worked on any movie ever. And then you have that. That's where I found who Dave Jordan's agent was and kind of continued with that. And then the last thing, I do want to plug the Guild of Music Supervisors. We're not a union, but the Guild has been around for, I think, like 12 years now. And they do such great work elevating the craft and educating on the craft. They just had their big conference a couple weeks ago. And I know that on their YouTube page, so during COVID, I'm gonna wrap this up really fast. During COVID, they started doing weekly panels, sort of like this, and they kept all of them. And so they're on the YouTube page, panels about working with the composer, music editor, music and animation, because that's a whole other thing, clearance, negotiation. They have all of those panels that they did with exceptional people in their field. They're all there. So I would definitely check them out. I listen to them. I'll put on one as a podcast for something that, I didn't know, like the music editor one. I was like, let me learn more about this. So I think that those three, TuneFind, IMDb Pro, and the Guild of Music Supervisors, are great resources for people that either want to connect with supervisors, to know their names and kind of get, their vibe, as well as if you want to be a music supervisor, start educating yourself on how the process works.
And Jen, I'm going to ask you one final completely selfish question. Who are the publishers or independent what was the word that you used? Independent
third-party licensors,
yes. Who are the companies in those spaces that you've enjoyed working with the most, or that you have found have been easy and good to work with?
I mean, there's a lot. I can't, because it really depends on what music that I'm looking for. And so that's definitely something that, that again, an independent artist this is how they want to make money. Well, you find out what songs are in there, and you find out, who represents them. Does your catalog fit with them? So it really comes down to, or if it's, if you're, a singer-songwriter, you're not going to be pitching to Latin music specialists,
Right.
So it just comes down to artists really researching their business and doing the work and doing the homework to find out, who are the big ones, who's got things. I don't want to call anybody out now because there's so many.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
That are amazing to work with. I'm really lucky, again, with the
Awesome.
community of people.
Amazing.
Question: you're sitting down with your younger self. What do you say to her?
I was thinking about this. I would say, just wait. It's going to get so good. It's really bad now, maybe bad now, but just wait, just hold on. It's going to be great. And you just keep doing what you're doing. I promise you're on the right path. Which I know is kind of not exactly,
That's beautiful.
That
just gave me goosebumps.
Just hold on, just keep going. Don't give up. Just keep going. Because, we all go through those moments. And that's, if I got to go back, that's what I would say is just wait, I promise.
Also, your moment of feeling lost is when you went and saw a movie, when you went and noticed the music supervisor name. It's like, you never know where that moment will take you. And so sounds like you were in the exact right place.
Yeah.
Well, Jen, it's been such a pleasure. We've learned so much. It's a real great honor for us to sit down with you and hear about how to keep going. And I know the House fam has gotten a lot out of it. I've gotten a lot out of it. And we're just so grateful for the work that you do, the way you uplift women in this industry, the way you support us and community. And we can't wait to see what fucking viral moment you give us next.
Well, hopefully these studios will step up and we can get out of this strike and all get back to work.
Hopefully.
Pay your writers, pay your actors.
Pay everybody, guys. Stop being
Yeah.
funny about it. Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
Union Strong. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
Jen.